Now, ladies and gentlemen, within the last 24 hours, IEM Dallas for Counter-Strike 2 has just finished up. NACS seems to be back on the map, but what seems to be the most interesting is the most and least played maps throughout the entire tournament. Ever since the new edition of Vertigo that we saw last week in the fire sale update, it seems based off this most recent event, it was the least played. With CS2 having one more major for the opening year of the game, I think it's also important to note what IEM Dallas did right and what we should expect going forward as majors are funded by Valve. Today's video, I want to break down this recent CS event, but specifically with the most and least played maps throughout the tournament. I'll give my take and touch on what I think will be added to Counter-Strike's map pool next, either something new or familiar territories, such as Train, Cache, Cobble, or something entirely new Counter-Strike is yet to see. We'll discuss all that alongside an estimation of when we'll see CS2's next map pool change. Now, today's video sponsor is Skins Monkey. Skins Monkey is a buying but most notably trading marketplace, that being for your CS2 items. You can trade off your old skins for something new. All you do is log in with Steam, you start a trade, and any cash remaining goes to your available balance on the site. When it comes to trading an item you don't have enough balance for on the site, Skins Monkey has a large variety of deposit options. By using my code Mando, you can get up to a free $5, and by depositing alongside using my code, you get an additional 35% of a deposit bonus. With Skins Monkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be in the top of the description down below. Firstly, for today's video is IEM Dallas. Now, if you didn't know it was taking place, I don't really blame you. Though it's not as much as CSGO, there's still, I feel like, a CS event every single weekend, so it's pretty hard to keep up with. This event started on May 27th and ended yesterday, that being Sunday, June 2nd. We saw Stewie 2K return back from Valorant to CS2, and he temporarily replaced Hooksy for G2, and that team ended up taking the crown for the event. Now, Stewie's performance, on the other hand, wasn't great, but he was still on the champions team, so he did his part. Aside from map statistics, we could also see the top weapons used in the tournament, which is also very interesting as well. After this most recent update, that being the fire sale update, we saw the introduction of renting skins, but also small things that I think a lot of people have forgotten, that being the M4A4 price reduction. And as you can see by this chart, not a whole lot of people have switched to it, if at all. Most people are still using the M4A1S and the other standard weapons inside the game. Now, I think a common theme between the weapons and also the map being Vertigo, which ultimately was the least played map throughout this entire tournament, only being played once, I think there just wasn't enough time simply for a lot of pro players to switch over, get used to the M4A4 again, or maybe for the first time, essentially getting used to a new weapon meta, but also the map as well. Yes, it's only one bomb site. Yes, they shrunk it a little bit, they added a catwalk behind the site, and they opened up that big wall going from mid onto A site. Though it doesn't seem like much, that is a big difference though. It changes up how mid's played, it changes up where you can play mid, how many people you play on B versus mid versus A. That also affects in the T side of where you can go and how fast players can rotate and hear you underneath the map. I also want to mention this is the first major LAN with Dust 2 being back in the map pool, and also with Vertigo's change now in game. So Nuke was played the most 16 times, Ancient in second place having 13, Dust 2 being 11, which that I gotta say is very surprising, Anubis 7, Inferno 6, which Inferno throughout the first couple of months of 2024 was one of the least played maps, but after Valve changed a few things, players really enjoyed it, it started feeling like original Inferno again. This has slowly started to climb its way all the way back up to the top. Mirage is in second last place, being played 4 times, and Vertigo at the very bottom, only being played once. Now, the obvious question may be the easiest to answer, but why was it the least played? Well, Vertigo as a whole is popular, but it's definitely not at the top with its recent change in A site. Like we just mentioned, this also affects mid, this also affects B, this also affects the T side of where you can and can't attack from. So most likely a lot of pro players and just players in general from the casual space are still trying to warm up and figure out new strats and how to play around, well, the new additions to the map. I also want to mention Dust 2, since it was in the top 3 most played maps throughout the tournament. It is also the first major tournament that, well, Dust 2 is back in the map pool. And if you go back a few years to CSGO when Dust 2 was still in the map pool, it was played a decent amount, but not all too much. Players were getting very fatigued by it. Yes, it's not new, but it's definitely new to CS2's map pool. A lot of the strats have been the exact same since CSGO and all the Counter-Strike games prior. The only thing that's changed in the pro space are some jerseys, and for all players, there's no skyboxes, which is just a change to Counter-Strike 2, which has definitely had a change of scenery. I now want to hop into my predictions for the next major tournament inside Counter-Strike of what that will look like with what maps will be played. In my opinion, Vertigo will be played just a little bit more. The change seems to be going well with the community, but needs more time to open up, just like every other small to large CS update. Valve will also most likely keep the map pool the same for over the next year at the very least. And in my opinion, a year is the shortest Valve is going to keep a map pool the same. That being if we just look at Counter-Strike's history. Now, if both the pro and casual space and scene really hate the map pool, we could see a change before then, but I just don't think that's the case. I don't have proof, but I can almost 100% guarantee we're going to see the maps that were played at IEM Dallas be played at the next Shanghai Major at the end of the year, and most likely the very first major of CS2 in 2025. But that leaves the question to what's next for Counter-Strike. Shall we see Train, Cobble, Cache return, or maybe something entirely new? Now, in my opinion, in my past previous videos, and even right now, I've been hammering down pretty hard that Counter-Strike just needs a brand new map. We need something new that we haven't seen in the past. Obviously, nostalgia is always going to take the cake, but we need a new map like Dust. We need a new map like Mirage. We need a new crutch map that everyone falls on, that being just for the future of Counter-Strike. If you want to grow the space, grow the scene, make things feel new and refreshing. Within the last few months, I did a Cobblestone retrospective, and the map is not as great great as most fans remember. It's very large and saw dozens of changes towards the end because Valve wanted to make it work, but if you look at that and a few others as well, Valve seems to have a tendency to change maps up quite a bit before they're eventually cut from the map pool. This is what my fear was with Inferno earlier on in the year when we saw dozens of changes with mid, on Banana, a site, shrinking, making some things larger, but obviously that wasn't the case. DE_train must be near or fully completed, as it was worked on since before CS2 was even revealed. Cobblestone, though it's not my favorite, it's definitely a fan favorite within the community, but once we get it, their opinion might change. Cobblestone was leaked almost a year ago to have a winter version. When and if that's going to come anytime soon, we have no idea. And for players wanting and crying out that cache needs to be added back to the game, well, I got some sad news. It still has to be finished. The map is nowhere near complete. It has to be play tested, patched, and then eventually bought by Valve to be added to the map pool. And that whole process will take a year at the very least itself. Though it sucks, it's just the hard truth. And I feel like I should mention that yes, we just got Dust 2 added back, but most players, including myself, felt like Valve just added it for filler until they were ready to release something new. So in a way, it was just to make things feel fresh within the map pool and the community to stop sending hate letters towards Gaben. I think the next most obvious addition to Counter-Strike's map pool and Counter-Strike as a whole is definitely by far Train. Train is most likely to come in the next Operation or just next major update, and maybe Valve can add Cobblestone alongside that because it's been leaked and teased for quite some time. But at the end of the day, and the fact of the matter is we're just too far out to tell. Who knows if we even get an Operation? We could just end up receiving 3 to 4, maybe 5 more of these fire sale size updates where they're 3 to 5 gigabytes that come with a map, a new case, a couple of new features, and some bug fixes. So let me know what you guys think down below of what you'd like to see next inside Counter-Strike's map pool. For me, I definitely want to see Train, but at the end of the day, probably something new. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positive, sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.